Welcome to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. These are casual chats with visiting artists. Creaky barn, bugs, and all. Enjoy. Hey everyone, this is Bill. I'm here with Chris, and we have two artists on retreat this week, which is actually super exciting for us. We were just saying that this is the first time we've had two artists brought together at the same time that did not know each other in advance of the session. Welcome to Kim Gordon and to Melanie Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kim, let's start with you. What are you been working on this week?
I have been working on watercolor batik, which is a form of traditional batik. It's a resist technique where you use hot wax as a resist. Hot wax repels liquid, and I work with watercolor on rice paper, and I use hot wax to control where the watercolor goes and what colors stay pure. So it's a fairly complicated, very ancient art that originated in Indonesia and is very process-oriented and very intriguing because you never know what you're going to end up with until you're done.
Are you doing this on paper or fabric?
On rice paper.
Beautiful.
So traditionally batik would be dye on cloth using hot wax as a resist. And this is a modification of the traditional technique.
And what project were you working on this week?
I am working on a series of images based on experiences in wildlife refuges. And so this week I was working on a pair of images of sandhill cranes. And one of the really kind of fun things about working here this week is every day I heard sandhill cranes fly over.
Did you really?
While I was working. So it's like, there they are. They're on my drawing table and they're up in the air.
We've been hearing some loud screeches in the sky. I thought they were geese. Maybe they're...
Would you know what a sandhill crane sounds like?
No, I don't.
It's kind of a croaky bugling noise.
Okay.
It's very distinct.
Did you get a chance to, did she
Yeah, I
identify
did.
it for you?
Well, I've had my Merlin bird audio identifier out with me most of the week.
Wow.
And yeah, I've picked up on a few things, so yeah, it's been exciting.
If it's meant to be, a sandhill crane is going to fly over the barn
Of course.
during this
You
conversation.
conjured the whole thing.
Well, I know they're around. They're pretty common in Wisconsin. And there is a wonderful nature center that is north of here, Crex Meadows,
Yeah.
that is simply chock full of sandhill cranes in the fall. They stage there before they migrate out of the region, and it's quite a sight. It's worth the drive.
Melanie, tell us about your work.
I've really just been taking advantage of having days wide open for making, and so I've been a little all over the place. I have been kind of splitting my time between painting plein air, which is not part of my normal practice, but you know, since I've been here, it's been a really great opportunity just to be outside and paying attention. And then, you know, like most of the afternoon, I've been in the barn. Usually I make these really large-scale charcoal drawings that range in size from 8 to 15 feet, and so I've scaled that way down, and I've started looking at individual native plant species from walking in the trails here, and just focusing in on actually just like an individual plant, which is something that I haven't done before. So,
Any plant in particular that was a focus for you?
Today I finished a drawing of greater burdock, which keeps featuring in these larger drawings that I've made, and when my walks I was taking images of these giant burdock plants and looking at like they're blooming and they're really gorgeous, and so like I use phone images as source material and kept flipping back to a couple of those images that I found really striking, and so yeah, I was able to finish a couple charcoal drawings while I was here, and then I did a painting of the deer as well. So
You must have caught the burdock on the walking trails.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell me that, because my job last weekend was, it's sad, but the burdock plant is a curse to our family. With you've met Lucy, long-haired Lucy, the burdocks. She finds a way.
The curly-haired poodle.
Yeah, to have burdocks stuck all over her. So we always try to clear the perimeter of the property of the burdock at this time of year. So as soon as you said that, I was like, what did I miss? Where did I miss it?
There's way back.
Perfect.
If
Okay.
you dig it up,
Our girl is safe.
you
Yeah,
can eat the roots.
indeed. That is a lot of work.
We had a foraging chef here, beginning of the year. We did a workshop, and he pulled some up and had us try it, and it was delicious. Tastes a lot like a light broccoli. It's great.
Yeah, it's commonly used in Japanese food.
I'm fascinated with your black and white technique, with kind of the natural organic world seen in black and white. So it becomes very textural. It's really beautiful.
I found that working in charcoal, when I started the charcoal drawings, and it's been a few years ago now, initially I thought that they would be preliminary drawings for paintings, and so I was thinking in those terms. And then there's a way, with the charcoal drawings that there's a speed in execution, but I think also a speed in mark that allows me to shift and manipulate. And so I think more about kind of creating a world rather than trying to create an exact replication of what's in front of me. And so I think that kind of like flexibility in the medium, and the fact that it, working reductively, it does have this kind of light that happens with I'm working on, rag paper or watercolor paper a lot of the time. So that's something that I started to respond to, in the process, and just found that, there was a kind of immediacy in working in the charcoal that, actually I think is more effective than if I were to render it in oil paint. And I think, there's also just something with like the ephemerality of the paper itself, that the longer I do it, they do break down over time. And that's something that, initially I was trying to figure out how to resolve, like how do I keep these, for the long term, but after a while I think they do just kind of disintegrate, and that's okay.
Just like nature.
So yeah.
The two of you got to meet for this retreat for the very first time. How has the experience been? We in the application process, we have a lot of questions about introvert, extrovert, art form, preferences. We want people not only to feel safe, but to have complementary art forms. And so how was that for the two of you?
I think it's been great.
Yeah.
When I was filling out the application, that struck me that you had that question, and she's like, oh, they understand. And we were talking this morning about how so many visual artists especially tend to be introverts and friendly introverts, and so I think that's worked out really well for the two of us. That we've had coffee every morning and talked about our days and what we've seen, and then really made the most of having like full studio days. I think we've both been really productive, like all day, every day.
We both have been working a lot, and it's nice to have that kind of morning. We have like a cup of coffee about the same time, and then it's nice knowing there's another person around, but you're not actually sharing your workspace. You have a separate workspace, so you can do what you want to do, and it's been really nice. It's been very pleasant.
Good.
Yeah, I think there's something that I'm not in a shared studio space anymore, and for years I was in a studio building where there were other artists working, and it was a closed door situation. So it was always just a nice feeling to know that other people were doing the same thing, and you didn't really have to interact, and it was a way of kind of being social without being social, and in a way that that somebody else is also focused on their practice, which for me makes me want to keep working. And so the fact that I knew like Kim was in there working, if I went in the house and she was still working, I'm like, I should go back out. So it's been good incentive.
Have you been working on what you thought you would work on, or have you pivoted upon arrival?
I have done both. I didn't have much of an idea of what the place would look like, and it's quite lovely. And I also had these projected goals for what I would accomplish, which I have dropped. I modified that to allow time to walk the trails. I've now done drawings at the end of each trail. I've been spending a lot more time working in my sketchbook than I thought I would, and I think it was actually sort of a funny thing. I brought a sketchbook with me to work on, and I opened it up when I got here, and it was a sketchbook that I had completed. It was full, and I thought, why did I do this? What does this mean? I brought a filled sketchbook with me, and you had some sketchbooks in the workroom, and I thought, well, I could decide that what I'm supposed to do is work with what presents itself. And so I sort of added that into my plan for the week, and I've been using one of those sketchbooks and working actually more in the sketchbook than I had planned on. If I had brought my little sketchbook with me that wasn't filled, I probably wouldn't have worked in it very much, and as it is, I've worked in it every day. I also brought some gouache with me, and I haven't painted in gouache in years, and I've done probably 7 gouache paintings, so that was something that was not on my work agenda, but has been really a lot of fun because it's a medium that I actually really love a lot. I just haven't worked in it in a long time. And then also batiking, so it was nice to be able to like work really intently and then switch gears and work really intently and then switch gears and just go sketch.
It sounds like you split your time between working inside and then heading out into nature.
Yeah, and today my goal was to spend all day outside, which I basically have.
Did you pull it off?
Yes.
Good job.
Mhm. I did go inside to use the facilities, but I didn't hide behind a tree. But it was kind of like being a kid again. Just spent all day. Mom told me to go outside, and I can't go inside until she says I can. So I spent all day outside. It was really wonderful, and I did a lot of drawing and painting.
And you painted the old original farmhouse.
I did.
You know, that is a main focus for a number of artists that come here. They are very drawn to that structure, that building. We have had plays written about it, poems written about it. People are drawn to it. So I love to see today that you were painting it, because I'm not sure
Yes.
that's happened yet.
I have painted it twice, drawn it once, and I did a batik of it. So it was used.
It's well
quite a bit.
represented.
Yes.
How about your projects, Melanie?
Well, I really kind of didn't know what to expect when I got here. I think my proposal was to research more than anything else, and so I didn't initially even plan to make finished work. Like I had planned to hike and study plants and do some reading and come up with some plans for larger drawings when I get back. And when I was packing, I just kept packing more and more of my studio, kind of thinking, well, maybe I'll use that, and maybe I'll use that. And so when I got here, it really was, it seemed like there were so many opportunities, and I think especially the weather's been gorgeous. Like it really has been tempting to be outside as much as possible. And so yeah, like I've been able to kind of split my time in a lot of different ways, but a lot of it has been responsive, like just walking on the trail. And the first day I was here, I took a lot of notes and just, really tried to get familiar with the plants that are here and what I wanted to focus on. And then I was able to do some reading and, kind of go with the initial plan, but then once I got started drawing, it seemed like there was time to do it, and I could, actually work through a lot of different ideas. And then, in the evening I've been reading and going back to that initial proposal of, making some plans and compositions and notes for future drawings. So I feel like it's been a really rich and productive week that way.
You are, one way that you are both connected, you're both teachers. We've enjoyed hearing about your very different student bodies and the legacies you're leaving. I think I mentioned it to you, Kim, earlier today, that teachers are a big part of the foundation. From the very beginning, we have given half of our proceeds for every performance to local art school teachers. While we want to support the artists, we want to support the aspiring artists as well. And it's been inspiring to us to hear what the teachers are doing in these days. Kim, I'd love for you to share with our audience your particular group of students and the work you're doing.
I teach through Brianna's Gift, which is also a small nonprofit, and we work with children who are seriously ill with cancer or other life-threatening illnesses. So currently we are teaching at Children's Minnesota and also at Gillette Children's in St. Paul. For a couple of years we were not able to work directly with the kids, so something I worked a lot with our director was developing video classes so that kids could have the experience of one of our teachers actually being in their room on their TV and stepping them through an art project. And that was really fun, and we sort of like turned the organization, it was like turned the Queen Mary really fast.
Yes.
Because guess what, we're not going to the hospitals for an unknown period of time, and we started making videos almost immediately.
Wow.
And I was the guinea pig with the first video that I filmed in my living room. I borrowed a green screen, which my cat thought was fun, and sat in back of it poking while I was working. And I sat at my coffee table and I did a project, filmed it with my phone, and it was the template for the next ones, and I had to learn how to do animation really quickly because we have an animated sequence at the beginning of each video. So I had to learn how to do some computer animation really fast because that was another one of the parts that I did for each video. So it was really fun, and really sort of a stretch, but it allowed us to keep working with these kids because not only were they still sick and still in the hospital, they no longer could have their full families visiting them. They couldn't have friends visiting them, so they were very much alone all day long. So this was a way of being with them.
And you're able to be in person now?
We are able to be in person now. We are very often have a sibling, and very often either the parents will join in the project, or it will actually be time where the parents can like lie down and fall asleep. It's very common to go into a kid's room and the parents will just look at you like, oh good, you're here, and they just like conk out
They need
because
rest.
they're so tired, they're so stressed, and they can't leave the kids because, you know, even though things have opened up, they can't have the same numbers of visitors as they used to. So things are limited to how many people can be in a room at one time.
How is the art used? What is
The art is an opportunity for children to be kids and quit being sick kids for a while. So it's not a therapeutic experience, it's art as fun. It's enjoying the moment, which is hard to do when you're in a hospital and you have someone coming in and poking you every few minutes or checking all of your beeping equipment. So it's really a time for them to reconnect with being a kid and using art and music as dance as a way of expressing themselves and enjoying themselves.
what are you learning from it?
I am learning how incredibly resilient children are and how much one's attitude matters about how one feels about their life. And kids are always looking forward to tomorrow. I walked into rooms where kids are, you know, we have a music teacher and the kids are like, can I play that instrument? will you teach me a song? Mom, can I get one of these instruments when I'm home? Mom, do you think I could be a musician when I grow up? So you go from a child who basically is in a bad place to a child who's planning on being a musician when they grow up,
Yeah.
or a kid who's revealing, my favorite thing is art, and this is an opportunity for me to do something, and they're happy that you make a living as an artist, because that opens a doorway in their mind for what they might do someday. But I think the primary thing is just the incredible resilience of children.
Melanie, you teach at the University of Central Missouri?
I do, yeah. So I teach, I coordinate the drawing end of foundations, so all of our first year students, and then I also coordinate the drawing and painting program there. So I'm sort of the 2D end of things.
Have you always been at the collegiate level you're teaching, or is that new for you?
I've been there for the last 15 years, so that's pretty much been, my home for a while. Prior to that, I taught at Heron School of Art and Design in Indianapolis for a year, and I have done a lot of community level teaching and high school level teaching as well, so just workshops and that sort of thing.
But you're drawn to that level of
Yeah,
student.
I think, teaching wasn't necessarily what I had planned to do. Like, I was focused more on my studio practice.
Yeah.
And I know, like, when I was in graduate school, I was pretty sure, at least in the first semester, that I really didn't want to teach. Like, it seemed like I was really not cut out for it. But, by the time I finished graduate school, I really found that I was able to clarify my own ideas through talking them talking ideas through with other people, and I think that continues to be the case. Like, it's definitely changed and evolved as I've taught longer and as I get older. But yeah, I think there's a real reciprocity that happens in the classroom where not only am I able to work through my own ideas, but my students are constantly surprising me, and a lot of times I'm like, oh, that's a really good way of thinking about that, and so I find that what they're doing a lot of times comes back to the studio with me.
You were saying that your students are now becoming your peers and you're showing together. What is that like?
It's really pretty amazing. I started teaching really pretty young. I started at the University of Central Missouri pretty much like right out of graduate school. So when I started teaching, the gap between my students and myself really wasn't that big, and it seemed enormous at the time, but it's really been incredible to see, especially those first students, sort of grow and evolve. And so a lot of them go into graduate school, or they go into the professional field, and they're really doing remarkable things, and that's been spectacular to see, but also just to kind of have that long-term relationship where a lot of my students, but especially those first students, like, I've known them for 15 years now, and I know their families and their partners, and sort of a lot of different aspects of their lives. So it feels like, just to have that and to see that is growing over time is something that is really special and really rewarding.
We end our podcast with the same question for each of our participants, and that is, how have you experienced beauty today?
I think as an artist, the thing that's most important to me in terms of what triggers my artistic response is basically looking at light on form. That's what I've always been attracted to, and this is just a really beautiful natural environment. It's in a beautiful part of Wisconsin with a very rolling topography, and the light on the land changes constantly, and so every time you look out, everything looks a little bit different. So that has been visually intriguing for me and very pleasing. And the other thing that I have really enjoyed is the bird life that's here. a bit of a novice birder, but it's been wonderful just to listen to such a variety of birds. And those things inspire my work. My work is usually based on the natural world and experiences of that. So it's just been a wonderful opportunity to feel completely surrounded by it and to wake up in the morning and instead of seeing to the end of my yard in the city, to see out for a great distance and to see all the patterns of light on the land. It's just been really wonderful.
Good for you for filling that bird feeder on Sunday, right before
Yeah,
they arrived.
yeah.
in December.
It makes the
Perfect.
little black squirrel very happy.
Melanie, how about you?
I've been working in the barn all week, and like I have to say, like I'm kind of in love with this barn. I think just the immensity of it. I mean, it's almost like being inside a huge vessel, and the weather vane is, you know, like I was thinking about that today when I was working, that like I'm not going to have a space like this again, you know, that like I can just kind of listen to all of the sounds that are happening around me and in the barn. And like I did a little painting of the barn this evening just to, you know, kind of get it down. But it's really kind of been being in this space, and you know, at the end of the day I just like pretty much collapse and look at the ceiling, and it's just like it's such an immense, you know, like really kind of beautiful space. So it's that's been a treat. And then, you know, really just the whole property, walking trails, and it's I think both of us have really taken advantage of that. Like every time I get to a stopping point after a couple hours, like I go take a walk for, you know, half an hour or so and come back and feel like I've kind of hit the reset button, but also, you know, fed myself too. So.
Well, thank you both for saying yes and joining us for the week. It's been a pleasure meeting both of you, and please stay in touch. And if listeners are interested in seeing your art, care to share just a quick your website where you host your art or a way to see it? This is Melanie.
Website is melanielynjohnson.com, and I'm also on Instagram at Melanie L. Johnson.
And my website is kimgordonfineart.com, and my Instagram is at kimgordonfineart.
Well, I have to say, we are both fans of your work. We love what you're doing, and we're excited to see how it continues to grow and meet the world. So we hope you stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. Our theme music is provided by John Mark Nelson. Wishing you all good health.